Watching the world burn, watching the world burn. July 16th, 2026. Let's get into it. So I always try to help you out up front in these videos. Got just a quick dumb story. I used to get on my ex-wife. I don't have any water today, so I'm a little bit choked up, and that's why my voice is slightly off. I just didn't want to carry it. Anyway, so I used to tell my ex-wife, I said, you got to check the pressure in your tires occasionally. Dagnabbit. Because she would let them get down. I'd get in her car and I'm like, I'd look in the check tire light is on or whatever. But anyway, I guess we'll all be guilty of the same thing. So the other day I noticed my tire light was on. I said, damn, that's right, I haven't checked my tire pressure in quite some time. So I got out there, checked the pressure. Every single tire was like 7 pounds low. So after, and I kind of know the distance that I can go on the batteries on my Toyota Prius Prime. It's usually about 44 miles or so. And I noticed, it was kicking off a few miles from my house, switching over to the gasoline engine. Anyway, so after I pumped up those tires, because I overinflated them just a little bit, because if when your tires are low, the outer tread on the tires wears faster than the inner tread. But if you have too much pressure in the tire, the inner tread will wear faster. So I needed to work on that inner tread. Anyway, my God, it gave me another another 10 miles on them damn batteries. I got to start. I have to actually put the car in gasoline mode to burn some gas from time to time. And then it's telling me I'm getting 109 miles to the gallon. The reason why I'm telling you about all of this, I think that gas prices are going to go sky high. I know I've been saying that for a while, but the Straits of Hormuz is pretty much shut down. And I don't know if you're following the news. Saudi Arabia, and by the way, this is somewhat confirmed. A lot of people are saying that maybe this was a false flag, that it was Israel that bombed Saudi Arabia. But no. Some people have confirmed, or it was Saudi Arabia. I mean, not that bombed Saudi Arabia, Yemen. That bombed Yemen. If you didn't know, there was a Iranian civilian flight that was going to land in Yemen, and the Saudis sent a jet, and they blew up the runway where the plane was going to land. And the pilot was a damn good pilot, so he diverted to a runway that had just gotten finished in another place in Yemen. How in the hell he knew where that runway was? And he was able to land there. But anyway, so Yemen, they fired on Saudi Arabia and they hit an international airport and I want to say a military base airport. So they 2 for 1. And then they're threatening to shut down what do they call it? The Baba something or other strait that's, gets you into the Red Sea. And so if they do that, man, that means that all the oil coming out of the Middle East is more or less stopped. And that's not, it's not just the oil. You got to remember that that's fertilizer, that's helium, that's sulfur, all the things that we need for a lot of different things. So a lot of people, I had a video, I was going to put it up front, but I couldn't do it. This guy's dressed in a Marine Corps outfit, but you don't know if he was a Marine. If he was, he's not a Marine no more. But he called Trump the Antichrist and said he needs to die. And I can't put that up front. I mean, I do believe Trump may be the Antichrist, but I'm certainly not going to call for the death of my president. No way, no how. Hopefully he'll just be impeached in about a year and we'll get rid of him that way. But in the meantime, I think he might get the record. We got Fauci who killed, well, probably millions of people. And then you've got, who else was there? Then, of course, we got Lindsey Graham, who's the biggest proponent of war, probably responsible for over 1 million deaths. And then, of course, we got the genocide going by Israel in Gaza and Lebanon. I thought that was really bad. But they're saying the shortages on the fertilizer, that 1 billion people or more may die of starvation around the planet because Trump went back to war with Iran. So that would make Trump the biggest mass murderer that I can recall in the history of the world, I think. I mean, Stalin, he killed over 1 million people, I believe it was. That's what I believe that's the number. Of course, 25 or 27 million died, during the World War II in Russia. And you could say that Stalin was responsible for a lot of those deaths because those were human wave attacks and the Germans just mowed them down. And I'm sure that Stalin had people in the back that would shoot them if they, just like in Ukraine, if they turned around, they could either fight the Germans or fight their way back to the lines and probably not make it. So you could look at it, Stalin, he's up there in one of the record categories. All right, so enough on that. I got a video here. Don't take my word on the gas stuff. This is Chris Martin's. Now, you might say, why do I keep playing his videos? Well, he was the one back in 2020 that clued me in to the whole COVID virus. And he was the first to bring to light that he had studied the virus, and he said it was artificially created in a bioweapons lab because he was a geneticist. And he said because of a splice into the virus. I guess was COVID a virus? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. But he said, because he studied it, and he said there's a splice in it. So the guy's smarter than hell. And so now, he's running peak prosperity. You might go over there, take a look at what he has to say. But let's watch that video now.
Russian refinery throughput, according to Alexander Style, has now collapsed to 2.8 million barrels per day from 5.1 million barrels per day in 2022. Their largest refinery is the Omsk, was severely damaged, though not quite yet fully offline. He writes here, gasoline, diesel, and jet shortages are now emerging simultaneously, with multiple crude distillation units, or CDUs, knocked out across the refinery system. There is no quick path to restoring refining capacity. Sustained product imports are becoming Russia's only viable medium-term solution. Good luck with that. Belarus's Mozyr refinery is the Kremlin's best hope for securing up to 90,000 barrels per day of gasoline and a bit of jet and diesel, but it sits just across the Ukrainian border and is itself an obvious strategic target. So let's keep an eye on that as we go forward. This is profound. Russia has now turned from a massive net exporter of diesel, jet fuel, and gasoline, and is now becoming an importer. It's no longer creating supply for the world, it's now creating demand for those products. And this is intense. Russia just a couple days ago announced that it's completely banning diesel exports after the refinery attacks. They say down in the Bloomberg takeaway down there, the decision could further squeeze global fuel markets. You think? Could. No could about it. Global fuel markets are already pretty tight. After this announcement, after the attacks that just happened, look at what happened this morning on July 10th. Diesel, its so-called crack spread, the price of a refined barrel of diesel shot up another $10 just in a matter of hours. Diesel now costs pretty much close to 100% above the price of a barrel of oil. It's higher than that. There's so much more to unpack here. Head on over to peakprosperity.com for the full story, premium insights, and an incredible community discussion. See you there.
All right, there you go. I haven't been reporting on the Ukraine more enough. I got a video by Vladimir Putin. I know, you're a Putin lover, man. You're a Putin lover, is that cybersecurity guy? I do like Putin. I think that he's a very level-headed leader. He certainly has brought Russia from the 90s where they were, basically in a Great Depression, more or less. And now their economy's doing well. They're winning the war against Ukraine without bankrupting their economy. But this is...
И обслуживать интересы США. Ведь помните, как-то про одного, не буду сейчас фамилии называть, про одного из бывших премьер-министров Великобритании, своя собственная пресса писала, называла его пуделем президента Соединенных Штатов. Ну разве не обидно? Но вот в таком же обидном положении по факту жизни находятся почти все руководители европейских государств. Только сказать об этом не могут. Но неприятно говорить об этом, стыдно. А здесь вот агрессия со стороны России, единый общий враг. Очень удобно здесь объединяться и обслуживать интересы США.
But, as you could see from Martinson, because of the war, they're not exporting. So that's another choke point for the gas and everything. So I always keep telling you what I'm doing. I made another Walmart run today. So I'm still stocking up. I got so much damn food in my refrigerator. I'll bet half of it's going to go bad. I overbought this time. Man, I got one of those rotisserie chickens. A buddy of mine, I was buying you could buy a whole chicken for $9 and cook it in the oven. But it takes a long time. You got to cook it for like an hour. And I mean, you baste it and you got to put spices on it. Whereas if you just get a rotisserie at Walmart, it was only like $7. That was a lot of chicken meat. I pluck them things down to the bone, and then of course they stink when you put them in the garbage, but you certainly do get a lot of meat for a really cheap price. Although I'm sure it's probably full of hormones and everything else. It's not the chicken that I cook in the oven is organic. And I think that just means they got a bigger cage, and I'm not sure if that means they don't get the hormones and all that stuff. Anyway, sorry I got off on a tangent there. So we got a number of videos. Man, I tell you what, the Iran war, it's a war now. It's a war. I mean, they are launching back and forth on each other. Got a report. I haven't cross-referenced it with multiple sources, but it came from Syed, who is a very trusted source in Iran. He said, we just bombed a children's hospital. I also have a video. I'm going to play this to you again. This is the Tomahawk smashing into that girls' school that killed 160 girls day one of the war. Let's watch that video. Ooh. Ooh. All right, so that's that. I don't know if there is a video yet of the girls, the children's hospital getting bombed. It seems like we'll just kill everything. Us in Israel. I don't understand it. Seems like there's no rules anymore to the United States. And then, of course, Trump comes out and says, they're begging. How many times the American people are going to believe Trump when he says that he's talking to Iran and that they're begging for a deal? He's been saying that for 4 months and American people still believe him. No, you're not talking to Iran, people. That's a damn lie. Trump is the greatest liar on the history of planet. That's why he could be the Antichrist, because in the Bible it says the Antichrist, will, lie and make people believe him. And that's what Trump's very, very good at. So anyway, let's watch some of the videos coming out from mostly from the Iran side, because the American side they suppress all video coming out. But these are targets getting hit in Kuwait, Bahrain, mainly. Some of the missiles taken off. I'm just gonna put them all together right here. Let's watch a few of those right now. All right, so that's kind of what it looks like. And then, of course, I'll get back on my box. 13 dead, soldiers my ass. 13 dead, soldiers my ass. You know, supposedly, now Iran's claiming they took out, because we brought in the HIMARS this time. And they were launching from Bahrain and Kuwait. And Iran says that they've knocked those HIMARS out. Well, there's a lot of soldiers that man those HIMARS batteries. And if they were there near or, you know, basically manning those batteries, they're all dead now. So 13 dead, soldiers my ass. 13 dead, soldiers my ass. There's another one now. Iran said they hit a hangar. I think I got either a picture or a video of that. We'll put that right here. And supposedly there might have been an F-18 or two in there. So they took out those planes. That's another thing. I don't see how we're getting all these bombs into Iran. I keep hearing from McGregor, Daniel Davis Deep Dive, and other sources that I trust pretty much. And they say we're extremely low on ammunition. Now they're saying, they gave a number, they said we're probably just going to go maybe 2 more weeks before we run out, especially of any sort of long range stuff. And the planes, from what I understand, Iran's got air defenses, so the planes can't really get over top of Iran to bomb everything. So I don't know. It seems to me this thing can't go on but another month or so. And then, of course, you got these idiots like General Kellogg that, you know, says we're going to go in and take Craig Island, or, you know, how in the hell are you going to do that? You know, you can't get a ship through the Straits of Hormuz. Now, one thing I wish I could find, and I might ask the AIs when I get home, we're going to talk about AIs here in just a second, is I would love to get a film of, you know, a boat sailing through the Straits of Hormuz, because I want to see these cliffs. You know, the way I picture it from what people have described, you know, if you've ever been to Pictured Rocks in Michigan, and you stand on the edge and you're looking down at the Lake Superior, I mean, it goes way, way down. And then, of course, if you've ever been to Portugal, they got those cliffs. I wonder if that's what it looks like, because there's supposed to be mountains right there on the Straits of Hormuz. Well, I'll give you a little story if that's true. If we did try to put soldiers on Craig Island, you know, all you got to do is put some artillery up there. You know, if you remember in the Vietnam War, I think it was the French. This was before we were heavily involved, but the French had a base. It was in a kind of a valley, okay, and around that valley was all of these. I don't want to say mountainous territory, but, you know, very well, you might as well, you know, hilly, okay, you know, basically like half as high as maybe a mountain, okay. And so they settled in at the bottom there, which is incredibly stupid. But they felt safe because they said, no way anybody can get artillery up on those mountains. Well, guess what? The North Vietnamese, I don't know how they did it. I mean, they had to push that artillery up the side of a mountain, and they got it up there. And then one day, they lit up the French and wiped them out with that artillery, because there was nothing the French could do. And after that, the French left Vietnam and we took over. So that's just a little story for you. So if Iran is shooting down from those cliffs with artillery, anything on that island is going to get killed if we even manage to get to the island. What I'm saying is I don't think you can get to the island, because they would blow it up, because you got to go through the Straits of Hormuz to get there. Anyway, daggone it, get on my box. I didn't want to talk about the Iran war because my last video was all about it. We'll finish off with a couple more videos that I've got, and I guess that's about it if I think of something else, we'll get a nature video. Peace out, stay free, and stay frosty.
Last year when I came to Iran, I got to meet members of the 10,000 strong Jewish community who live as a protected minority under the Islamic Republic. I prayed with them in Isfahan. I interviewed their leadership. I met with them in their community centers, and I produced a documentary about it, which you can see at our YouTube channel at The Gray Zone. And I was left with a sense of worry, not because they could potentially be harmed by the Islamic Republic. They're protected here. But because Israel cannot allow a stable, prosperous Jewish community to exist in the Islamic world, because it defeats the whole logic of Zionism, which mandates the establishment and maintenance of a fortified Jewish sanctuary in historic Palestine. And so on April 7th of this year, my worst fears, or some of my worst fears, were realized when I read the news that the Rafinia synagogue, which you see right here, a 50-year-old congregation, so old its roof is made of wood, was totally destroyed in an Israeli airstrike. How would that happen? Well, Israel claimed we didn't mean to do it. We were targeting an IRGC compound. Actually, right over there where I'm looking is an apartment building where Israel killed 2 university professors, just totally residential. There's nothing that I could see that could potentially be military. It seems consistent with the whole history of Israel attacking Jews in the Islamic world starting in the early 1950s. The historian Avi Shleim has documented this, attacking Jewish community centers in Baghdad through underground organizations run by Israeli intelligence in order to compel that community out of fear to flee to Israel. All the way up until 1982, the Israeli military attacked the only synagogue in Beirut, Lebanon, where Jews and Christians were actually taking shelter under the protection of the Palestine Liberation Organization. It was actually rebuilt in the mid-2000s with the blessing of Hezbollah.
I forgot, we can add 2 quick stories here. The Ukrainian defense minister has resigned. Everybody says, well, another one bites the dust. And of course, you know that Russia's hitting Kiev hard. But what I forgot to tell you was that it's moved into the, is it the Black Sea? I think that's the one there. Anyway, Ukraine was hitting a bunch of Russian shipping, civilian ships, carrying cargo with drones. And then Russia finally retaliated and hit a Ukrainian cargo vessel. I don't know if it was with a missile or a drone, and or drones, plural. So that's kind of heating up in that fashion. Of course, the Europeans and the United States are still providing lots of drones to Ukraine. Although I keep hearing reports that Russia, well, like if you didn't know, Lindsey Graham was at a drone factory in Ukraine, and Russia blew it up right after he was there. Now, some people speculate maybe he was in there, and that's why he's dead now. But who knows? But yeah, they hit it, and then some people speculate that the reason the Russians found out about that drone factory was Lindsey Graham led them right to it. So maybe Lindsey is dying with his dying breath. Did the Russians a favor? You never know. Just a different way to look at it. Silver right now is below 60 again, last I looked. So I think it's a good deal. But I did watch a special with Rick Rule. You didn't know Rick Rule is probably one of the greatest commodity traders, maybe ever. Okay, he's the Warren Buffett of commodities trading. And he did an interview with Miles Franklin. That's a coin or a precious metals dealer. And the girl that was interviewing, boy, she was fantastic, good looking too. But I mean, she was asking him great questions. And because, Rick doesn't want to give all of his secrets away, but she did get out of it where he's investing right now. And he's saying right now that the mineral stocks, or the mining stocks, are a great place to go to invest your money. And he listed three. I can't remember all three. There was Pan American. I think that's one of the biggies. That's a no-brainer. And then he listed another one. And then there was I think it's called Vesa. But it's a mine in Mexico. Now, if you didn't know, in Mexico, you pretty much have to make a deal with the devil to mine in Mexico. In this particular mine, the cartels are actually the government that mine sits in the middle of. But supposedly it's got a real good hit on the vein. But what just happened, I don't know, the management of the mine pissed off the cartel and they went in there and killed a bunch of people. So I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be working in a mine in Mexico. But anyway, Rick he liked that deal. But if I can figure it out, I'll put the symbol in the video here. He said, but you can lose. That's a 50-50. But he says if you did get it right, that's a 10-banger. So that would be a huge deal. Whereas Pan American, for example, and I'll put up the third stock, they're just going to pay you. I think they pay a dividend. So at least you're going to win that way, whether or not the stock goes up. But Rick felt they were cheap right now. He said he wouldn't buy. Like he sold all his silver back when it hit about $80 or so. I don't think he actually hit the 100. He sold 80% of his silver. And he says he wouldn't buy the physical commodity right now. So don't listen to me, listen to Rick Rule. He knows a lot more about it, even though I did buy just a little bit more physical silver here recently, just because I hadn't bought any in a long, long time, because I've been paying down the bills, which I hope you're doing. You pay off your debts, stock up, and maybe look at those mining stocks. Okay, if I think of something else, we'll get in the video.
What you see behind me is the wreckage of the volleyball and wrestling facility of Azadi Stadium in Tehran. It was destroyed on March 5th of this year during Operation Epstein Fury by 4 U.S. missiles. Massive destruction all around. There's nothing really left of it, as you can see inside. And I actually managed to talk to a local wrestler who has competed in this stadium. And I said, why would the U.S. do this? It's obviously not a military target. And he said, because it was a wrestling facility where international competitions were held. So the U.S. was actually targeting one of Iran's best sports. Iran is famous for its wrestling. Its wrestlers routinely win gold medals in international competitions in the Olympics. And so the U.S. was targeting Iran's athletic infrastructure. And when you think about the attacks on, for example, Iran's scientific research facilities. We went to Sharif University the other day and saw the attack on the AI center, the attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities, the assassinations of its scientists, its quantum physicists, its electrical engineers, the attacks on Iran's oil plant, the attack on the Tehran oil refinery that doused Tehran in oil. It all starts to come together. And when you think about what just happened in the FIFA World Cup, where the competition was so obviously rigged against the Iranian national team with 15 of its members, almost its entire training staff prevented from having visas, the team having to cross from Tijuana to California every day, and then the team robbed of a goal with a crooked VAR call. When you think about this whole picture and put it all together, then it becomes clear. What the U.S. and Israel intend for Iran is not freedom, democracy, woman life freedom. It is national destruction.
Oh yeah, I forgot to report on this real quick. Daniel Davis, he knows people, or there's a report, the EIA report, and it's saying that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at its lowest level since 1983. That was the last time it was this low. So, and we're continuing to drain the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and so since it's that low in 1983, how much longer can we go till we can't draw any more out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? And on the way out, I'll just give you the gas prices here in Florida. We're damn near back to $4 a gallon on gas, but what is really going to hurt was it was about $5.50 on diesel. That's right now. So you can see it's gone up quite a bit because we were down, well, we might have gone below $3 at one point. So if it's that high and we're getting no oil out of the Middle East, you know, there's only one direction gas prices and diesel prices can go. And what's going to hurt with the diesel, because see, a lot of the oil from the Middle East is what we convert into diesel, and we've been cut off from that. We have what's called sweet crude here in the United States, which doesn't convert well into jet fuel or diesel. And guess who's going to get that jet fuel and diesel first? The military. They're not going to worry about you and me. So if diesel prices hit, let's say just $10 a gallon, I can't imagine what that's going to do to your food prices. So that's once again, stock up, stock up, stock up.